It's the first international break of the women's football season, and we're using the pause of domestic action as a chance to take stock and evaluate how every WSL team has started the season. We analyse who is at the best start, how to assess Crystal Palace, and attempt to dissect what's going on in North London. This is our rating of every WSL club so far. Alright, we're 5 match weeks into the WSL season, and we're here to give our judgment, pass our judgment, on every team's campaign so far. So, Harry, we'll start with Arsenal then. The way this is going to work is we're going to grade every team like we are teachers from A to F. So, Harry, you'll be very familiar with those F grades, so you should be good at getting those. And then we're going to grade every team's season so far in all competitions, considering everything that's happened as well. So we're going to take into account those extraneous circumstances, stuff like that, and we're just going to consider how good every team starts the season has been. So we're starting with arguably the worst start to the season in Arsenal. Now, obviously, the thing you've got to consider with Arsenal is weighing up those expectations and how good they are compared to where they are in the table. Am I right in thinking they are probably the most underperforming team?
Yeah, very much so. I think, as you say, in all competitions in the first 5 match weeks, they are below expectations in every single competition so far, and that is a big worry. And I think it's not just an underperformance of 1 or 2 positions. If they were, 3rd or 4th and they'd only lost to City and Chelsea, if they'd only, if they got points at both City and Chelsea, they'd only drop points at City and Chelsea, then that would still be underperforming and disappointing. This is a whole new level. What we're seeing from Arsenal right now is they're massively below expectations, to the point where you have to rethink where the expectations are. The expectations for Arsenal going into the season would be to challenge for the WSL title. They are miles off that at the moment. There's 4 or 5 teams between them and the top spot. They're already quite far behind Chelsea, who have a game in hand, and City, who are unbeaten so far this season. It's been a really poor start to the campaign for the Gunners.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the sacking of Jonas Eidevall plays a part in that as well, because sacking your manager immediately indicates the season's not gone particularly well. I think the 5-2 loss to Bayern was really disappointing. I think the games against City and Chelsea actually weren't too bad. I thought they were the much better side against City, and I wouldn't blame that result on Eidevall. Arsenal should have taken their chances in that one. And I think similarly with Chelsea, I thought the team selection was wrong that day. But overall, I don't think Arsenal played particularly badly. They just fell on the wrong side of fortune. I think, however, the draw with Everton showed a lot about where they are this season. The really disappointing manner in the victory against Leicester. Yes, they won, but I thought the performance was really drab, and they easily could have come away with nothing from that game. So you can see why the decision to sack him, his decision to leave, was made. Obviously, as I alluded to, that 5-2 loss to Bayern Munich, particularly damning, I think, in the fact that it just shows Arsenal are nowhere near the conversation. Yeah. And that's a really hard pill to swallow, I think, for Arsenal fans and for the side at the moment. So I think probably the worst start to the season in terms of where they should be and where they are. How would you grade that, Harry? Is F too harsh? Could it get worse for Arsenal? Is it realistically possible to get worse? That's the thing.
It could have got worse. I think it could have got a lot worse, because as you talk about, you look at the Leicester game, you look at the Man City game. They were losing to Man City at one point. They were not good enough against Leicester, so they could have dropped a lot more points.
And they have won both games under René Slager. And
exactly, I think if Eidevall was still in there, Valerenga could have got interesting, and West Ham could have again been another drop of points. But I think from what I've seen in the most recent matches where they beat Valerenga and they beat West Ham, they looked a little bit sharper. West Ham, again, yes, it did take them quite a while to find the back of the net, but the difference is that you felt throughout the whole game, they were going to score eventually, whereas in other games against Leicester and Everton, they just never looked like scoring. They didn't against Everton, they eventually did against Leicester, but against West Ham, they did actually look like they were going to find the back of the net, and eventually they found 2 goals. So I do think it looks more positive. I think you have to...
Yeah, a very positive start for René Slager. And though I would say the next run of games could be very telling. They play Manchester United next, then Brighton, Juventus, Tottenham, Juventus, Aston Villa. It's a really tough run taking them into December, and even to the end of the year, to be fair, with Valerenga, Liverpool, Bayern. So we expect Slagers will be in that role. Obviously, we've got the international break over the next 2 weeks where Arsenal may announce a manager. But at the moment, it does look like René Slagers will be in there for now. I think that will be a really testing period. If they come out of that looking positive, looking solid, I think there's a chance Slagers gets that job full time.
Potentially.
Because you'd have beaten some really difficult opponents in there.
Yeah.
And Tottenham. So that would be very interesting to see. So how would you grade it then, Harry?
I would go Yeah, I don't think it's an F. I think an F it would be catastrophic levels of disaster.
Is it not catastrophic? The 5 points off Man City.
I think if Ival was still there, then I think it would be.
Okay.
But the fact he's gone, the fact they're a little more positive, I think you can probably give it a E, D/E.
I would go E, so I'd be happy to settle there on an E.
Okay, yeah, we'll go for an E then.
I don't think we'll see anyone lower than that. We might see teams tie that.
Yeah, definitely. I'll get teams to get onto later. But yeah, I will say an E. It has been a really torrid start to the season, but things have looked slightly more positive, and as you say, a big run. The next run will make or break Arsenal's season.
Yeah, all right, let's move on to our next side then, and from poor performances with okay results to good performances but no results, it is Aston Villa.
Wow. I mean, how this team are only on 2 points, I don't know. You look at their first 5 games, they took the game to Chelsea, got nothing. Took the game to City, got nothing. Were 2-0 up at Tottenham and drew the game. It is just Brighton, they were 1-0 up and they still threw that away in a mental scenario where both teams end up down to 10 players. What a season Villa are having in the wrong direction. It has been so positive. The work Powell's done has been really strong. You can see they play really nice football, but they've only got 2 points to show for it, and it's baffling, to be honest.
I think the question for me, that I'll pose to you, is it misfortune or misfiring? Is it that they've got unlucky in those games, and are there elements of that, or are they just not killing these games off in the manner they should be?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. You look at the Chelsea game, you look at the Leicester game. You could probably say they should have scored, but they scored 2 against Tottenham.
I would mitigate the Chelsea one, obviously, because it's
Chelsea. They went and scored against Man City, and you just feel that. I think, the Tottenham one was kind of killed off. To be honest, you're 2-0 up with not long to go, and they somehow didn't win the game. That one is the most confusing for me. They were so comfortable. They were in a dominating position.
It was 2-1 to be fair.
2-1. And I think they look so comfortable. Even at 2-1, they look comfortable. But I was stunned. I was just so surprised to see, because Tottenham never looked like equalising.
Tottenham took 4 shots all game, 2 on target. They scored both of those shots on target. Obviously, they're 1-0 up through that early penalty, and I think Villa will have frustrations around that. That they shouldn't be giving penalties away so consistently. They have conceded way too many penalties this season. And then obviously they got a goal on 78, a goal on 88. They looked like they'd win it. Beth England went and scored in the 96. I think this season for Villa could be so different because they sit in 10th right now, and it's difficult to say they've had a good season because of it. But if you add an extra 2 points to their tally, suddenly they're 8th. They're above Tottenham, which for me would reflect really badly on Tottenham. The fact that Tottenham were a last gasp equaliser away from currently sitting 10th in the league, that would be damning for them. But But on Aston Villa, I don't think it's been a terrible start to the season. I think they've had a really tough run of games as well, I would say. I know that Tottenham haven't been great this season, but they are still a good side on their day. Chelsea, Man City, the best 2 teams in the league.
They've played the top 3.
They've played Brighton, who are 4th, but they're right up there in the conversation. And then and Leicester, who they should have beaten, in all honesty. But Janina Leipzig was incredible that day. So I think it's a weird one for Villa. I think their next run of games, once they've got Liverpool and then Man United, so it doesn't get much easier. Yeah. And then they've got Palace, where they should be winning.
I think it's one of those where I think United is probably out of their reach. I think Liverpool, though, if you catch Liverpool on a bad day and Villa play the way they've been playing, I think Villa actually would benefit. A leaky defence, I think Villa would punish. And Liverpool got to be careful that game doesn't get messy, because Palace were all over Liverpool last weekend in the most recent game, and they should have won that. Villa, for me, have got more firepower. They look more dangerous coming forwards. Liverpool got to be careful. That's a big game after the international break for Villa.
I think any defence that concedes 7 big chances, even if 6 of them are missed, that's a really bad sign for Liverpool. So I think I agree with you there. That is a game that Villa could exploit. I think Man United, as you say, are just out of reach. Palace is a must-win game for me. Villa need to get some points on the board there. Then Arsenal. We have no idea what Arsenal are going to look like right now, but that could be really difficult. So I don't really know when it gets easy for Aston Villa. It doesn't feel like it does. And I think that it speaks of volumes about the quality in the league. There are no easy games, really.
I do, but again, though, in 5 weeks' time after the national break, they could have beaten Liverpool, beaten Crystal Palace, and beaten Tottenham in the League Cup. Suddenly, they're on 6 from 6 in the League Cup, and they're on 8 points in the league from 8 games. And things look much, much brighter. I think the key word for me with Aston Villa is patience. Got to be patient, because clearly Powell and Villa are playing some really nice football, and he's got a really nice way of playing in this league. the results will come because the performances are so high.
Yeah, and they need to score more goals because they've only scored 5 this season, and 3 of them are Rachel Daly. So they do. No other player's got more than 1 for Aston Villa, so they do need to start putting the ball in the back of the net a little bit more. And let's move on then to a side. Oh, sorry, we've completely forgot the whole concept of this video. Harry, glad you're on it. What is your rating?
I will say, I think if they'd got some more results, I would have said a C, but I will go a D just because they are only on 2 points.
Yeah, I find it very difficult to disagree. I think that, it's not as bad as Arsenal, then I don't think they're anywhere near sacking De Boer yet, but football's a results business and you can't really go against that too heavily. I could see an argument for a C because I think their performances have been okay enough to push them up, but I'm more than happy to offer them a D. Let's get on to the next club then, and from a side that haven't really fired this season to a side that are on absolute fire, they're on flames, Brighton.
Wow.
Are they the best team in the league this season? Because I think, compared to expected performance, they're doing incredibly well.
Yeah, they're doing really, really well. And again, we talk about another manager coming in Dario Vidicic, who is playing some really nice football. The difference is his players and his football is breeding results for Brighton. They're unbeaten. Sorry, they've only lost 1 game, and that is to Manchester City. Apart from that, they've been unbeaten, and they have played Man United. They have played that Aston Villa side, who we know have played quite well. Brighton have been really, really good, and even in their wins, they've played in convincing fashion. They took the game to City and lost narrowly. They pulled it back against a United side who hadn't conceded a goal yet. It is a lovely mix of a team. They've been brilliant. They've been absolutely brilliant, and they're delivering results. The performances are brilliant, and they're just a really enjoyable side to watch play football.
Yeah, across all competitions this season, 4 wins, 13 goals, 3 clean sheets. It's really impressive stuff. A draw against Manchester United to add to that rap sheet. Brighton are doing really well at the moment. I think that not only the results there, but their performances are there. I think a lot of people would argue that they should have beaten City in that game. I think one of their key aspects has been their bravery in possession. In that City game, they were playing it out of their penalty area against one of the best sides in the WSL. And that bravery, that boldness on the ball, I think made the difference there because Brighton were inviting City onto them and then playing through them and then finding space to attack. And I think on a different day, Brighton may well have scored. I think you know, you look back to that City game, and I don't think they had Nikita Paris starting yet. And now since Paris has come in, she's been absolutely phenomenal.
Shock.
Would that have? Oh yeah, true. Would that have made a difference having Paris in that game? Potentially so. So I think Brighton have been so impressive this season, and well, there's no reason why this won't keep going. They've played some really difficult teams, actually. And up next, they've got Leicester. Then they've got Arsenal. Never know what's going on with Arsenal at the moment. Then West Ham. You know, there is no reason this can't keep going for a good few weeks more at least. Chelsea, obviously, at the start of December will be a big test for them. But they've shown with the City game they are up for those kind of challenges. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a long season for Brighton. An interesting season for Brighton, sorry. Where this goes from here, I'm not quite sure. Have they got the depth to compete right at the sharp end? Is this performance level? Is this over-performance of expectation sustainable? That all remains to be seen. But from everything we've seen so far, from all the evidence, they're right up there this season, Brighton. Yeah, they're really, really good.
They just need their players to keep delivering, and they are at the moment. I do have some questions, because if you look at the players who are delivering at the moment, to be fair, the squad is a lovely mix of young prospects and experienced players. I think the experience is very valuable. As you said, with Paris has come in and looked brilliant. Fran Kirby's looked really, really solid. And these are experienced ISL forwards who are coming in and they're still delivering to a level. I do think I don't think you can rely on them for a whole season. I love Fran Kirby. I love Nikita Paris. But, you know, as we say, they are experienced forwards because they aren't at the top of their game. They will provide really good goals and they will provide brilliant performances on their day, but I don't think you can rely on that for a whole season. But then you've got the exciting youngsters to come through. Via Maya scored her first goal for Brighton a couple of weeks back. The youngsters are starting to really deliver as well. And obviously Kiko Seike, I mean, scored 4 in match week 1 and
hat-trick in match week 1.
Match week 1, sorry, and just looks brilliant. Like, what a player.
Has played very, very well. So, a rating then, Harry?
A. Has to be an A.
Not an A star?
No, because they're not top of the league. If they've beaten Man City and they're top of the league, that's an A star.
I think if they'd beaten Man United, I'd give an A star.
Probably.
And I'd have, because I think considering their expectations this season, I think if they'd beaten United, I wouldn't be too worried about the City game, or if they'd drawn with City.
True.
But either way, fantastic start to the season. I don't think anyone's taken that away from Brighton. And let's move on then to a flawless start to the season. It's of course Chelsea. 4 wins from 4, 15 goals scored, the most in the WSL. It's been a perfect record so far. It's very difficult to say Chelsea have had anything other than a brilliant start to the season. Could you make an argument though that the performance levels haven't been top notch yet?
That's exactly my point. It's been flawless results, but the performances are far from flawless. I think there's been the Villa game opening night was was difficult for Chelsea, but we expected that. Bonpastor coming in, her first OSL game was never going to be a brilliant thrashing, a complete performance. We knew that.
It could have been.
It could have been, yeah, because it's Sonia Bonpastor, but it's new ideas. Now, do I think we would have seen a bit more of an improvement in performance now? I do, but and it does surprise me slightly that the Tottenham game was so scruffy from Chelsea. I think the Real Madrid game in the Champions League as well was another messy one. They're just, for me, I think Chelsea have still got a few issues to iron out. I would have expected those issues to be ironed out by now because they are one of the best teams in the world. They've got one of the best managers in the world. But I do think that, again, as the season goes on, these issues should disappear and Chelsea should deliver some, top-notch performances.
Yeah. I would disagree with your comment on the Tottenham performance, and that might be slightly controversial, but I think watching that game, there were definitely signs that Chelsea look a lot more assured in the way they're playing. I don't think that there was... I think there was a slight defensive flaw still at right back, but Matilda Wimberg never exploited that. And so I don't think Chelsea played particularly poorly. You consider the 2 goals they conceded, and it was the weird fluke goal, which Hannah Hampton should have dealt with anyway. And then I personally don't think that crossed the line. I know people have argued otherwise, and the angles are very impossible to tell really because they're awful angles. But yeah, I don't know how you can't really judge that either way. Yeah. Whatever you think, whether that went in or not, a weird way to concede, and then a free kick. And I don't think either a free kick, which by the way, Aggie Beever-Jones and Vika Captain both jumped out of the way of. Really bizarre free kick, and that went in. I don't think either showed that Chelsea were defensively poor in that game. And Chelsea, brilliant in attacking areas. They scored 5 against Tottenham, and I know Tottenham haven't been great this season, but I thought the performance was really strong.
I do. I think the last half an hour did flatter Chelsea a little bit. Yes, they played very, very well, but I don't think that the performance in the last half an hour represents the whole game. But it was better, especially as you say, when you compare it to Real Madrid, when you compare it to Villa on the opening night, when you compare it to Arsenal away, it was much better from Chelsea. And it's scary, to be honest, for the other teams in the league, that if Chelsea are perfect when they're not playing very, extremely well, once they do get to top gear, once Lauren James is back from injury and other players are firing all cylinders, Chelsea could be a very dangerous prospect. One of the best, and we could see a Chelsea side that are playing better than we have seen the last few years, which is freakish, and it would be freakish.
I get your point, by the way, on that last half an hour. Chelsea Chelsea really turning it on against Crystal Palace, against Tottenham. But equally, if they can score 3 goals in the last 30 minutes against every side in the bottom half of the league, it doesn't really matter how they perform in the first half. So I get what you're saying, but I think in that Arsenal game we saw a really strong performance. They looked great in the first half going forwards. Then because Lucy Bronze can't defend and Caitlin Ford scored, it completely changed the complexion of the game and Chelsea decided to go really defensive. And I thought they did ride their luck at times, but ultimately the tactical setup made it difficult for Arsenal to break them down because Arsenal can't break down low blocks. And Bonpastor knew that, Chelsea knew that, and they dealt with that effectively. So I don't think performances have been 5-star, but the results have been. How would you grade Chelsea right now?
I think... Again, if I know they're not top of the league only because they've got a game in hand, but if they'd won 5, if they have played 5 games, they've won 5 from 5, and the performances have been better, it probably would be an A-star. I would say an A because they are still on a perfect record, but the performances do probably need to be improved a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that. I will concede to an A. I would probably say A-star myself, but I'm more than happy to go for an A. I don't think, therefore, we have any A-stars, which may be a controversial take, but...
I'll wait until I've got mine. Okay. West Ham.
They have been great. Let's move on to our next side then, which is, of course, Crystal Palace, down in 9th in the table right now. Perhaps a bit of a weird one to judge because, they've had some good results, they've had some bad results. How would you summarise the season so far?
I think it's been a positive one, and I say that because, once again, similar to Chelsea, but the opposite for Chelsea is that for Palace, the first couple games aren't a representation of how good they are. And to be honest, if you look at that Chelsea game, I think the second half is not a reflection on how good Palace are. Because in that first half, they went toe-to-toe with Chelsea. And I do think that the 4-0 to Tottenham and the 7-0 to Chelsea, people already wrote off Palace after 2 game weeks. And then things changed and the performances have really shone in the last couple game weeks. The draw to Liverpool, the win at Leicester, and all they're doing the performances are the same. They're just getting the results now because they've had a few games. They've got used to the league. They know what it takes. Players are now starting to fire. We're really seeing we're starting to see some consistency build for Palace, and that is exactly what they need. As I say, the last 3 results they drew to Liverpool, went toe to toe with Brighton, who are one of the best sides in the league at the moment, and beat Leicester. That is a massive contrast to the other 2 results that started their season, and that is why. Now they're getting the results on the board. That's critical. They're keeping the points ticking over. That's all they need to do. A brilliant start to the season, really, for Palace.
Yeah, I think considering the circumstances, I think Palace fans will be very pleased with how they started this campaign. Yeah. I think they probably should have beaten Liverpool, and maybe we would be talking about this in even more glowing terms had they beaten them, because they had so many chances in that game and they just couldn't put them away, and that'd be a real source of frustration. And the manner, I think, in which they've conceded a lot of goals this season is so disappointing, because they the goal that they conceded against Liverpool, they handed to them on a silver platter. 6 of the goals that they conceded against Chelsea, they should have done more about. So, I think that'll be a source of frustration. And the Tottenham game, I mean, Tottenham have been really poor this season, and Palace lost to them 4-0. So I think there will be some frustration there. But as you said, the last 3 game weeks have been very positive. Even that loss to Brighton, because they were very competitive in that game because of how good Brighton have been this season. I don't think there'll be too much frustration there. Man City's up next, and they might get stuffed. They probably will get stuffed, but I don't think that will be a bad thing for Palace. I wouldn't worry if they do get stuffed there, because I still think they'll be okay when they play Everton the week after, when they play teams like Aston Villa, West Ham. I think they'll be able to compete against those sort of sides.
Yeah, I think. And the other thing with the City result though is that even if they lose 3 or 4-0 to City, that shows the improvement. That they lost 7-0 to Chelsea. And if they only lose by 3 or 4 to City, that shows the improvement. Yeah, I know Chelsea are probably a little bit more cutthroat than City, and they probably do score a higher volume of goals, as we've seen over the last the start of this season and last season when they beat them on goal difference. But it still shows an improvement that they would manage to keep such a high volume attack to only a couple goals. And I think overall the fact they've come up to the league and they've taken 4 points from the first 5 games is really strong. You factor into those 5 games that. When you compare it to last season, they've played the champions in Chelsea, they've played 4th place in Liverpool, they've played 6th place in Tottenham, and Brighton look ridiculous at the moment. I know Tottenham look really poor at the moment. They did lose to them 4-0, but I still think Palace have got rid of some big games already. Once they've got rid of City, that's another big side ticked off. So the games against the bottom, they've still got to go to Everton twice, still got to go to West Ham twice, still got to go to Villa twice. And Leicester once again, and they've already got a point against that. Have already beat them, so I think it looks really promising for Palace.
Yeah, I think because of their goal difference and those thrashings at the start of the season, it skews those numbers somewhat. Because I think 4 points from 5 games for a promoted side is not bad at all. And if they have had some really tough fixtures in there. Obviously they have got the worst goal difference in the league. They have conceded the most goals in the league, but I don't think it's all bad for Palace. They've shown they can compete in a lot of games. They've shown that they can be defensively solid. Yeah. Other than Chelsea and Tottenham, they haven't. They've only conceded 2 other goals. Yeah. So I don't think that this has been a bad start to the season for Palace at all. How would you rank it then?
I think I know they're still quite, but I think compared to what they would expected, I would say a B. I think A, to get an A, they'd have to be mid-table, probably on 6-7 points, but. 4 points. They've got a win. Within their first 5 games, which is absolutely massive. I would say a B. Really promising start to the season, and I hope they can build on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have looked at these first 5 games of Palace and said they'll lose all of them.
Yeah.
So I think compared to that, they've done really well, and their performances of late have been really solid. So I think they'll be pleased with how they've started. So yeah, I'd agree with a B. Yeah. I think that's just above that sort of. Yeah, they've done okay. I think that's a good start to the season, so that's how I'd categorise it. It's not a great start. A great start, they'd have packed in Chelsea. No, a great start, they'd be on maybe 6-9 points, something like that, and we'd be talking about them as absolute shockers. How have they managed to get here? But I think for how they've started the season, I think a B is very fitting. Let's move on then to our next side, which, if I can remember the alphabet correctly, is Everton. Oh no.
Yeah. Wow.
No, Everton. It's not been a great start to the season. They've scored the least goals in the WSL this season with 1. And if you count that as Everton scoring a goal, then I struggle to agree with you, because that came off the back of Camilla Saiz, who is currently their top goal scorer and winner of Goal of the Month. So, tough situation for Everton at the moment. I mean, are there any positives to go off? They have taken points off Arsenal and West Ham. But it's been a really bleak start season for Everton.
Yeah, and it has been a really, really tough campaign. As you say, they did go draw at the Emirates, which is a completely contrasts everything that you want to say about them, because even in that West Ham point, they were trailing until West Ham put it in their own net. So it is a really, really tough start to the season. I mean, they drew to Newcastle in the League Cup.
One on penalties, though.
One on penalties. Oh, I don't.
But still, they're playing a championship opposition there, and they couldn't beat them over 90 minutes.
No,
they did win 3-0 on penalties. So the Newcastle goalkeeper, huge question marks there. But overall, it's been a really tough start to the campaign for Everton. They lost 4-0 to Brighton. I don't think the United performance was too bad. I did have a bit of belief in them after that one, but Arsenal, they did well not to concede. And again, I think after 3 matches, we were saying, you know what? They've got West Ham coming up next. They've looked defensively solid those last 2 games. If they can just bring in some attacking performance, maybe they'll get something here. The West Ham game, they didn't do that at all, really. At the end of the game, they did start to get a few shots away, but for most of the match, they weren't great. They didn't generate a single big chance throughout it. The only goal they did score was a cross that was flicked into her own net by Camille Says. So I find it really difficult to put Everton, to chalk up any positives for Everton this season. It's been a really tough start to the campaign.
Yeah, and as you say, off the back of two good performances against the top 2 sides that finished in the top 5 last year, in Man United and Arsenal, it looked promising with 2 massive relegation games up next. They were lucky to draw against West Ham, and I mean, the Leicester game, they just did nothing, and that's the problem for Everton, is they're not doing anything when they have the ball. They're
Leipzig
not
using had a great game, to be fair, and so did all the Leicester games, because I thought the last 20 minutes especially, Everton really should have scored. They created 3 big chances in that game.
And they did go for it, because obviously they went from a 3-back to a 4-back, and that massively helped, and maybe that's the way to go. Maybe they're going too defensive against the sides. They need to come forward. You have to score goals to stay. You cannot survive without scoring goals. Not a single Everton player has scored a goal this season, and I mean, apart from the League Cup goal. But it's just they have to do better in attacking areas.
The issue is now they've played West Ham, and they aren't that, and they've played Leicester, and they're teams that they could be getting points against. Coming up before Christmas now, they play Chelsea, Palace, Liverpool, Tottenham, and Manchester City. I think that is such a tough run of games.
Huge one.
Morale's already on the floor. And in that run, you've got to try and get something from it. And in the Cup as well, they've got Manchester United and Liverpool. It's such a horrible run of fixtures coming up for Everton.
And if they, I think the minimum has to be a point against Palace, and that is the bare minimum. If they lose to Crystal Palace, I'm sorry, Everton fans, but I think you're in big trouble. I really, really do, because when you compare it to the sides that are already down there, West Ham, Aston Villa, Palace, they've shown all 3 of those sides have shown that they do come forward. They do cause a problem coming forwards. Even if they don't score goals, they still put teams under pressure. But Everton have to find the back of the net if they want to stay in the WSL. Simple as that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there. So a grade?
I will go an E. I think you have to match Arsenal. It has been they haven't scored a goal. They're off their own doing. I think that
is the issue. I think it can't be an F, because they have got 2 points. They're not currently bottom of the league. I don't think you can say F. The draw against Arsenal was a good performance. To be fair, they did well defensively in that game, even if they offered absolutely no attacking threat whatsoever, and Arsenal really should have scored. I still think they did well not to concede in that game, so I can't say an F. I think an E is fitting. Yeah. Let's move on then to another side who are a bit struggling in front of goal, but haven't really conceded this season. It's Leicester City. 7th in the league, 5 points to their name. They've only scored twice, but they've scored when it mattered. A 1-0 win against Everton, and a 1-1 draw with Liverpool. And that is how you get games over the line at times.
I think it's been... I think Leicester are probably the only team that are kind of matching my expectation of them so far this season. We know they're a good team, but we know it's going to take time for Mikel to come in and deliver. And, I feel like, obviously, you had Depor coming at Villa, and that's below expectations. Vidicic is coming at Brighton, and it exceeded expectations. So it was only right that Mikel comes in and kind of just... hits the expectations on the head. And
Bon Pasteur's probably done the same, but equally, I think anything less than winning every game with Chelsea is a failure, isn't it?
But I do think that it has been exactly what we knew was going to happen, which is they've got very good players, they're a very decent side, but it will take time to get used to playing this way and how Mikel wants the team to play. As we know, been no Rantala and no Mouchon for the last 2 weeks either. So missing big players there, but overall, they've got points on the board, which is what matters at the end of the day, and they've had some decent performances. And I think, to be honest, I think they're the only side who you can say they've beaten who they should have beaten, they've got points off the teams they could have got points off, and they've lost to who they should have lost to.
They are just a few goals away from being super competitive in this league.
Yeah.
They've, only Chelsea United have conceded less goals than they have. Really strong defensive performances. So yeah, I think there's a lot of positives to take. They played Arsenal, they only lost that 1-0, and even then Arsenal really struggled to break Leicester down at times. And Leicester with, if they can just start scoring goals, they will beat teams like Arsenal. I think Palace is a big blemish on that record because that is a game where they should have won, and then if you add 3 points, they're on 8, and suddenly they're level on points with Arsenal, and we're going, can Leicester win the league?
It's one of those where you go, they should have beat Palace, but to be honest, I wouldn't have had them getting a point at Liverpool, especially from a losing position. So those kind of results will cancel themselves out. Like they should have at least got a point off Palace, but I would expect them to lose to Liverpool. So I think you can. I mean, they should have beat Palace.
Yeah, it's not like they've got a horrible run coming into Christmas. They've got Brighton and West Ham in the next 2, which will be interesting, and then obviously they've got United, City, and Chelsea before we get into Crimbo. So, I mean, if they beat West Ham, if they manage to nick something against Brighton, I think they'll still be in a really fine position.
The way everyone's started the season, 3 points from that run isn't terrible at all because Brighton have been ridiculous, United are really strong, City are really strong, and Chelsea are really strong. So for Leicester, 3 points is probably the expectation from the next run. If they get more than that, happy days, because that means they've taken a point off one of the top 4, if not more. So I think they're in a really nice period now where they've delivered some decent results so far, and now they've kind of got a nice period where it doesn't really matter what happens. If they get 3 points and they lose the rest, that's okay because that's expected. If they get anything else, what a win.
Yeah, so a good start to the season then for Leicester. Grade, Harry, what would you give them?
I think they've matched expectations. They've not been poor. They've not done anything spectacular. I think a C. Just middle of the row, decent season.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of where we've put everyone else because obviously Crystal Palace at B. I then struggle to say, well, have Leicester comparatively had a better or worse season than Palace?
I think they've had a worse.
It's hard to judge
just because
based on expectation.
Because of the quality in the squads for me. I think Leicester have a much stronger squad than Palace.
But they did take time to adapt to Mikel's system, so I think you could argue either way. I would also say this, but I'm happy with a C. I'm pretty sure I would say that. But I'm happy with a C. I would say, given that they've had quite an easy fixture run, maybe they could have taken more from this, but
when Rantala gets back, they might just beat everyone. So
maybe that is always an option for Jutta Rantala. So we will see. So an okay start for Leicester with a C. Let's move on to Liverpool then. Liverpool could have taken 15 points in the first 5 games. Yeah. Genuinely, they have been so good in all their games. Yet they currently sit 6th in the table with 6 points on no goal difference. Yeah. 7 goals conceded, 7 goals scored. What's happened with Liverpool?
I don't know. I don't think that's a question. Even if you ask Matt Beard that question, I think he can answer you. What a weird season. As you say, they've played so well this season. They were...
Bar their most recent game where they were absolutely awful.
They were. And so, bar that one, but they still drew that one, which again was surprising because they could have... But they were beating Leicester, didn't win the game. They were beating West Ham, didn't win the game.
They tried their best to give Tottenham the win.
They did try their best to give Tottenham the win.
Smashing in their own net whenever they scored.
And they won it, and then they led against City, and they lost the game. And I know Man City's maybe a bit of is a different side because they're ridiculously good.
Yeah.
But the problem is for Liverpool is that they were in 3 of their first 5 games they're in winning positions and they didn't win any of those games. They were losing to the newly promoted Palace side who had only got 3 points prior to that game, and they had to. It took a penalty in the last few moments against a Tottenham side who have looked really poor this season.
And a free kick as well.
And a free kick from Hervinger. So it took a Hervinger masterclass in the last 12 minutes. They should be on more points. They really should. And it is a shame because the difference is with Villa is they're not under a new manager. Villa were under a new manager. Villa are, they've brought in some new players. For Liverpool, the new players have made them look better. They're not under new management. And they finished 4th last year. They're really below expectations at the moment. I know they're only 6th, but points-wise, they should be on more points. Look at this. They've had a nice run. It's going to get tougher now.
To play devil's advocate, I would say that Liverpool have been very good to start games. I think they've played very well in the first half. I think a lot of Liverpool's issues this season have come from their lack of squad depth and their injuries.
That is
I think
true.
The fact that you consider half-time against Manchester City, Olivia Smith has to come off injured, I think that changed the way they were playing.
Yeah.
I think maybe with Smith on there, you've got a bit more to aim for up front. Most recent game against Crystal Palace, with the news of the Romain Haug injury, she's now out for a period. Their midfield, they have had no options to bring on in midfield. So we've had games when Nagano and Herbing have had to play full 90s when perhaps some rotation would be good. The same issues, Matthews came from centre after playing defensive midfield for a bit. The same issues have struck at wing back where they have no other wing backs. So you've got Taylor Hines, who I don't think is a top player anyway. I think gets caught out too often. And then she's got to play 90 minutes against Manchester City. If she's got to play 90 minutes in these sort of games, it can have a huge impact. And I think Parry's been really good. But these players need rest. I think for Liverpool, they are working on a really small squad and a bit of a shoestring budget at the moment, and I think that given those circumstances, the performances have been really good. The results just aren't quite there because they can't kill games off when they can't make substitutions because you just end up running out of steam eventually. So I get what you're saying, but for me, Leicester played well in that game. That's quite an even one. I thought Liverpool probably should have won. They should have beaten West Ham. West Ham scored an 85th minute equaliser. But 17 shots from Liverpool, and they only scored one. They only put one away.
Wow.
West Ham only had 2 shots on target, and one of them was in the back of the net. So I think there'll be a huge amount of frustration there. But they've not played badly at all. They've already ticked off Manchester City and Tottenham. I don't know. I think it's a difficult one to judge. Going into Christmas, if they could take something from Villa, if they take something from Everton, they've also obviously got to play Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United in there. But maybe they could still be in a decent enough position to then see what happens in January, see if they can get in some reinforcements and go from there. But I don't think it's been a bad start to the season for Liverpool. Scoring-wise, how would you grade Liverpool's start to the campaign?
Oh, that is a tough one because, as you say, I do think that does change my opinion. I do kind of think they have had a torrid injury record. Even Matt Beard out with illness for one game week.
Whose manager gets injured?
That's
what's happening at Liverpool right now.
List. But I think
they've had one goalkeeper.
Yeah, and there was a moment in the Man City game where Yana Daniels nearly came on in goal. Tanya, sorry, yeah. But I mean, I think scoring wise, I think with the C, I think because they are 6th, and you look at who they've played and they should take more points. But I'm factoring in the injuries there. I believe. I don't think you can put it on a B because I don't think they've played. I don't know. I don't know. I'd say B/C. I'll make you make mind up.
Considering they were 4th last season, they are lower in the table than they were last year. I will be happy to give them a C.
Okay.
I think they could have. For me, B is a good season. Have they had a good season? Performance-wise, yes. Yeah. Results-wise, definitely not. So it can't be a B for me. C's okay. And I think while performance has been good, results have been bad. Middle out.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Let's move on then. Where does the alphabet go after L? It goes to M, of course.
We're going to Manchester.
And to what side? Well, of course, we'll start on the blue side of Manchester. Manchester City. Top of the league. 4 wins from 5 games. A draw in there against Arsenal as well. Only 9 goals scored though, and 4 conceded. It's not been flawless for City, but when you consider the season as a whole and the fact they beat Barcelona as well, which for me is a huge result, a good start to the season.
A good start to the season, and it has got better. I think it is fair to say that the last couple of games have looked a little bit sharper. I mean, I know it has been, as you say, it's been a really weird one because they have come from behind in their last 3 games, and I know I've just said they look a little bit sharper, but I think especially that Villa game, the performance in the second half was high quality. The difference for me between the Villa game and the Liverpool and Bolton games was that in the Liverpool and Bolton games, there was times in those 2 games where the result looked at doubt. In the Villa game, even though Villa went 1-0 up, City always looked like they were going to win. The second half especially, you just knew, didn't matter what minute it was, you knew City were going to score 2 goals in that game because they were ruthless. And Lauren Hemp, phenomenal performance. But I do think for City is, again, they're doing the business and they're playing like champions. The problem is, the other team that you are going up against for the title plays even more like champions. And City lost out on goal difference last year, and it looks like the same thing could happen again because the performances have been pretty flawless. The problem is they're not scoring as many goals as Chelsea, and that would be my one thing of City is that they have got to start keeping more clean sheets. They can't keep going 1-0 1-0 behind one by a goal to nil every single game. But as you say, there've been some standout performances. But they're brilliant against Barcelona. Even the only drop of points was Arsenal, and they should have lost that game for me. So I think the fact they're still unbeaten, they'll be very happy with that.
Yeah, I will just make a point, which will probably be untrue by the Crystal Palace game, but they've not scored more than 2 goals in a WSL game this season.
Wow.
For me, that is a point of concern because, say you're 3-0 down to Chelsea, is there any chance of bringing that back? You never know.
Well, no.
If you're 3-0 down against Chelsea, what has happened there? But for me, they should have lost to Arsenal. Arsenal were a better side in that game, and if they'd taken any of their chances, they'd have beaten City. I still have some doubts over the system. I think they are way too open in transition, as we saw against Liverpool and as we saw against Aston Villa. And yes, they got those wins over the line, but for me, those huge tactical flaws can't remain. The only reason they beat Barcelona is because Barcelona are not going to try and play transitional football. They're going to try and play possession based, which when you press them as aggressively as Manchester City can, because they commit so many players forward, you will continuously win that ball back. And even so, Barca still came forward and still looked dangerous in that game, and City's quality just rode them out of those patches. So yes, they have won every match bar the Arsenal games so far this season, but I still think there are just some tactical flaws that worry me for City. You can't argue with 4 wins from 5, though. You can't argue with a perfect Champions League record. So I still think they've been fairly top-notch, but with Chelsea a couple games on the horizon, it's going to be interesting, I think, that match.
It very much so is. As you say, I do think that Jill Rodd back is a massive help, and she's been back for the last couple of games now, but obviously Polton was a rested side, so
that was a bit of a mess.
That was a bit of a mess. Liverpool, I don't really know what was going on in that first half. Second half, they looked a little bit stronger, and Villa game for me was never in doubt, even though they went 1-0 up. Villa had one shot.
But in all of their last 3 matches, they've gone behind.
They have. Next 3 are massive. I think they've got Palace, Tottenham, and Hammarby before Chelsea. Those 3 games, because realistically, I could see them beating. I think they haven't scored more than 2 goals in the WSL yet. I could see them winning all 3 of those games by 3 goals or more. Because Palace, for me, that should be a clean sheet and 3+ goals. Tottenham cannot defend at the moment. Chelsea put 5 past them. You've got to be careful because Tottenham have shown that they can score goals. But that should be another good performance. And then Hammarby lost 9-0 to Barcelona. So was it 9-0 or 7-0?
I don't think it was 9.
Was it not
it
9? How many was it in the end? It was 9. They lost 9-0. So City should get a few there. Suddenly that's 3 more wins. That's 9 goals and hopefully and 3 clean sheets. Then they're going into Chelsea, and that is really nice. I think things are looking really good for City. If they beat Chelsea, it's advantage them in the title race.
Well, that's the big one, isn't it? Because City's season at the moment is an A. But if they lose to Chelsea, then suddenly they are 3 points behind the Blues. They are a game in hand off Chelsea, and suddenly it looks like a really difficult season for Man City. And that's the issue, is you can be flawless, but it all comes down to the 16th of November. Yeah. If they beat Chelsea or if they lose to Chelsea, it makes a huge difference to how we view their season. And for me, that's the really interesting situation we're in right now. So, yeah, season so far, though, is what we're judging, not what could be. What would you give it so far? And well, the only yardstick at the moment that we've got to measure City versus Chelsea is Arsenal.
Yes.
And City drew with them, Chelsea beat them.
Yeah, I think if City... it's really hard, because I would say that if they'd beaten Arsenal, it would be an A-star, because it would be perfect. They'd won every single game. The fact they drew to Arsenal, I'd put it as an A, especially because I don't think Arsenal have been brilliant. As we've said, Arsenal are an E.
They're terrible.
It's one of those, but they should have beaten Arsenal. That's what in terms of they not on the performance, but Arsenal needs to be a win for an A-star for me. I think an A is a good result. They were brilliant against Barcelona. Just need to start scoring more goals and keeping more clean sheets.
I'd be inclined to go for an A-, but I will happily stick them at A rather than getting too pedantic with it. Yeah, they've had a good season, Man City. Yeah. I don't think it's...
they're unbeaten.
I think it's difficult to argue otherwise. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can't really argue otherwise, but there are worrying aspects to their performances, and I do think, with Chelsea coming up, with Manchester United the first week of January, there are some big tests coming up for City. And Brighton, let's not forget that, they have got to play Brighton again at some point this season. They did beat them, though.
So they did. That is good.
That was a good result. Yeah. So, good start for City then with an A. We briefly mentioned Manchester United there. Let's get on to them then. What a weird team, but they haven't lost a game this season.
Martin Skinner's football team are playing well. They're unbeaten. What is happening? Raise the alarm bells. This is mental. But yeah, Man United, what is going on?
Is it the fact they've had a really nice fixture run? And if they played Chelsea, would we be talking about them in a very different light right now?
They have had a nice run, but Man United of old would have dropped more points in this run. And I think that's the difference to me. And even though they haven't played well, again, Pitt will go, well, they didn't play very well against Everton. I was like, but they got the result. If Man United had played poorly at Everton last season, they would have dropped points. And I think that shows how United have improved. They've now got the quality. They've got the players in like Turlan, like Clinton, that even if they're up against it, they're still getting results. I think they've had some really good performances. I think the Tottenham game after 33 minutes was absolutely brilliant. I think that
once they found Bize and Turlan in the box, they started just scoring loads of goals.
I mean, Bize's got 3 assists in her last 2 games. They're using her really well. They're using her strengths, and she is delivering.
I still don't like the fact she's playing right back, but I think she's a very good player. She is,
and that's the thing. If it works, it works. Mark Skinner, he might be a bit mad, but Mad Mark is working. Wait until it all starts going wrong. that is going to happen, and that will eventually happen at some point.
Yeah. It's been a good start to the season. I do think the Brighton draw exposed a lot of what I've been speaking about this last few weeks, saying that yes, United have played well against West Ham, against Everton, against Liverpool in the Cup, against Tottenham, but all 4 of those sides have shown they're not great defensively at the moment. And I think yes, United have only didn't concede in any of those 4 games, but Brighton showed that there are still frailties in the United system, that they're not flawless yet. And I think if they had played Chelsea, we would be talking about them in a different light. They've got Arsenal up next. That's going to be a huge test.
Horrible timing.
Because, well, exactly. Arsenal might have a new manager in. That could be new manager bounce.
Even that if they'd played Arsenal a game week sooner, that are much more favourable for United. Instead, they're playing an Arsenal side who have now Eidval's now gone. They've had they've taken 2 wins from 2. They've now got an international break to again sort things out. Arsenal could come back from the international break looking really sharp. So, and as you say, they could have a new manager. So, for United,
it's going to be a great game.
That will be a great, that will be a really good game.
Yeah, do join us for that. Our next live stream, Manchester United Arsenal. Yes. Do join us there. Will be a good one. Rather than self-promoting, though, let's get on to grading. Harry, where would you place United start of the season? Unbeaten in the Cup, unbeaten in the league.
I think you have to put them on the same level as City. They're both unbeaten, and if United had played a game more, then I know it was Chelsea, but. United are unbeaten.
They would have lost them.
They would have. And we would have. But they haven't played Chelsea. They are unbeaten, and they've looked really, really sharp in most games. It's another A.
Yeah, concede the least in the WSL.
Yeah.
It's impossible not to say A, and I hate it because I don't like United. I don't like Skinner, but whatever.
Hats off to them.
A for Manchester United. Is it not an A star? Because they drew Brighton.
If they'd beaten Brighton, then it probably would be an A star. Yeah, because they'd won it. Same with City. If City hadn't drawn that game, they'd be an A-star. If United hadn't drawn their game, they'd be an A-star.
Fair enough. So why aren't Chelsea an A-star? Flawless.
Because they're Chelsea and they have higher expectations than everyone
else. They've got to win every 8-0. If not, it's not an A-star. Fair enough. All right, who is next then? We've only got a couple of teams left to do. We've got up next then Tottenham Hotspur. We go from a side who we thought would be bad, doing really well, to a side we thought would be good, doing really bad. Tottenham, Harry. What's going on?
I think, to be honest, this is going to sound harsh, but I think compared to the expectations, they're on the same wavelength as Arsenal. Massively below expectations. The performances have just been terrible.
They're on 4 points. They beat Crystal Palace on the opening day where they tanked them, but I think Palace fell apart at the end.
That was Palace's first game of the WSL.
They drew with Aston Villa and played terribly, and other than that, they just about squeezed past Charlton with an 86th minute winner in the League Cup, and then they've lost 3-2, 3-0, 5-2 in their last 3 matches. Looked torrid defensively. They're in a lot of trouble, at the moment, Tom.
They are, and I think that yes, they can score goals. They've proven that brilliantly. They love a goal, and we know that they've got the firepower up front. But defensively, there are just too many errors. In the last 3 games that they've all lost, it's been they've given away a penalty in every single game. You can't get away with that. No. Ash Neville gave away 2 out of 3 of those, and Nilden stuck one in their own net against Chelsea. Tottenham, you will not get away with making these errors. If they keep making these defensive errors, they're going to have a really horrible season. And that is the simple fact of it. You cannot keep scoring own goals. You cannot keep giving up other teams' penalties. You can't keep making defensive errors that lead to goals. They have to sharpen up. because I don't think they're a bad football team. As I said, they're brilliant going forwards. I think they've got a lovely midfield with Summer and Arsenal, and it is a really tough...
I don't think either of them played particularly well though this season. That's the issue. I think a full-back they've been caught out every 3 seconds. Both their midfielders have played really badly. In their last 3 matches, I think they're just getting drawn out way too easily. There's so much space in midfield.
Yeah.
You watch that Chelsea game, and they were queuing up on the edge of the area to slot in chances at times because their wingers would just beat Ash Neville or the half-stricken Nilden like it was nobody's business, and then just look for a cutback where there was a load of space on the edge of the box.
The problem is Tottenham are in a really difficult situation now because what Villaharm is scratching his head at the moment because what can he do? Because you can't really tell your players, you can't really control if your players are giving away penalties. You can't control if they're scoring own goals. The problem for Villaharm now is that there's no easy fix at the moment. But you can't just go stick another fullback on because Charlotte Grant played against United and she also got torn apart at left back. So
I get that, but I still think they are tactically all over the place because they are not getting the ball forwards and creating chances.
They're not.
When they get chances, they're putting them away because they've got good attackers, but they're not getting the ball forwards.
Yeah.
They can't build up. Their build-up structure has been woeful, and Manchester United took 33 minutes to realise that, but they did eventually realise it, and the game completely changed.
But I don't get my biggest question to Villaharm is how has this happened? What have you tried to do that is different to last season that has just meant that everything falls apart?
Because they lost Clinton.
And that's
who they would give the ball to in midfield and she would carry it through lines, or they'd give it to Bizet and she would carry it through lines. And the difference is they just don't have someone that can completely change the game like that. And isn't much of a ball carrier anyway, to be fair.
She had played well.
Yeah, she had played well against Crystal Palace, yes. That
as you say, their points are down to a 98th minute equaliser and a 4-0 drubbing of Crystal Palace in their first game back. They went 1-0 down to Charlton Athletic, who are looking good in the Championship, but they're in the Championship. For Tottenham, I think they're on the same page as Arsenal and Everton.
Yeah, they have played Chelsea United, and that's something to consider. Chelsea and Man United are both good teams. They've played Liverpool, who can be a good team on their day, and that day they would have won 3-0 though if they hadn't kept giving Tottenham own goals. So you could mitigate it somewhat with that. I think the next 3 games will be telling as well. They've got West Ham at home, Manchester City away, Arsenal away. Yeah. Then we're into the next international break before they come back with Everton and Brighton before Christmas. Is Villaharm in trouble?
Yes, very much so. Because
how does he lose his job? Because for me, they should beat West Ham and Everton. Is that enough to keep him in the job till Christmas? Or through Christmas?
Potentially. The problem is...
They'd be on 10 points then. They would have lost to City, Arsenal and Brighton.
From the 4 teams below them, I think they should... Palace won't jump... Aston Villa will probably jump them if they keep playing the way they're playing. Then suddenly they're only ahead of newly promoted Palace, Everton and West Ham. That's nothing to brag about at all.
You've also got to consider though that they could. I think Villa may get better, but they might also not.
They might.
And I don't see Leicester picking up a whole host of points in the next. Between now and Christmas. They will probably beat West Ham based on form. But other than that, I could see Leicester losing every game between now and Christmas. And then suddenly, they're ahead of Leicester. They could even be as high as 7th. Liverpool have got a bit of a tough run coming up as well. I don't think it's all a mess for Tottenham, but this international break's got to be a kick up the arse. Got to be a big change.
They need to work it out. I think between now and Christmas is the work out the problem, fix the problem, and then from the new year you look to you go into the new year, you fix your issues, you're playing better football, and then deliver the results. That has got to be the plan. Don't judge what happens next. Just try and improve. Even if they lose every game between now and Christmas, but they shouldn't. But if they do, focus on the improvement and then come back in the new year after the winter break and deliver some really high quality performances.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah, fair enough. So in terms of a grading, I can't see them as an E.
I don't think they're that, Because
looking at the other teams we've got in E at the moment, Everton, are they E or D?
They're E. They're E. They've been terrible.
Arsenal, and I think there might be another team in there in a moment.
Yeah.
But Tottenham, for me, that's not been that catastrophically bad.
They're only 7,
and
8.
You've got to those games that they've had to play as well. Chelsea, United, Liverpool, all tough fixtures. Even Villa are a difficult side. I know Tottenham were absolutely awful in that match. But still, a tough side.
And the difference between Tottenham and Arsenal, and then Arsenal and Everton, is that I think there's promising times for Tottenham, Whereas with Arsenal, we have to judge mostly what Eidevall did, and with Everton, there's nothing promising going on there whatsoever.
Yeah. All right. Last club then, West Ham United. I started with the Everton segment. Sorry, by saying, "Oh no."
Oh dear.
West Ham. Uh-oh. They've not been absolutely terrible.
Again, there's a difference here between West Ham. West Ham, there's something promising going on. That is the fact they can score goals. They have players who can score goals.
And I think their run has been deceivably difficult. If they'd beaten Everton, I think we'd be talking about West Ham very differently.
Yeah.
Because they drew with a good Liverpool team. They lost 3-0 to a very good Manchester United side. They only lost 2-0 to a very good Man City team. And they only lost 2-0 to a new-look Arsenal side. Those three are very tough matches.
They are.
As are Liverpool. If they'd beaten Everton, we'd be talking about West Ham completely differently. And that's the thing for me. That is why I find that game so frustrating. Because I think if they had just got that over the line and not booted on their own net, they would have been all right. Because Everton weren't going to score based on everything I've seen of Everton this season.
I think West Ham and Everton are the other way, are the reverse way around. Everton look decent defensively, cannot score to save their lives. West Ham, they've got the players to score goals. Ueki, Asayi, but they can't defend.
But have they been bad defensively? They only conceded 2 to City, 2 to Arsenal, and 3 to United.
But you look at it again, and they drew to Everton because of that stupid. Maybe it's not defence as a whole, but the errors. They were managing against Arsenal until Tissiak just decided to take out Blackstenius and give away a penalty.
Yeah.
They were beating Everton, and then they went and scored an own goal. Just need to cut the errors out. And again, you look at the City game. They nearly scored. I mean, they had the ball in the back of the net.
I think they have had a tough run. They've got. Their net between now and Christmas, they play a really bad Tottenham team, Leicester, Brighton, which they will probably lose, admittedly, Crystal Palace, and Aston Villa have been a bit all over the place.
Run.
That's what I mean. They've had such a tough start to the season, and if they can get some points on the board and find themselves climbing the table before Christmas, they come back to Chelsea, which is horrible.
But they might have been on enough points by then. They don't have to worry about it.
Well, exactly. Well, I don't think it'll be enough points. They don't have to worry about the rest of the season. But Chelsea's never one they're going to realistically win. No. But I don't think it's been an awful start to West Ham. They played Arsenal at the wrong time. I think if they played Arsenal when Everton did, they may have got a point there as well. So, things just haven't fallen right for West Ham, but I don't think it's been as bad as Arsenal or Everton's season. I still think there's a lot of promise for West Ham. If they can start picking up some points, I think they will be very competitive. Not very competitive up the table, but I don't think they're doomed for relegation.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting, but for me, they'd be ahead of Everton right now in the pecking order.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I do.
So in terms of a rating, I don't think they're in the A bracket.
No,
I think it's close.
I think they're on level with Tottenham, but in D, where it's been a really poor start, but there's promising signs there that they can find the back of the net. They've only conceded 9 goals when you look at Palace, Tottenham have both conceded 13. Yeah, there's promising signs for West Ham. A good run coming up. They have to deliver now. If they come out this run with not many points, then we get to Christmas and it is very much they're in trouble.
That's some very fair analysis, I think. All right, I probably should have noted down what grades we gave everyone, but instead, I think it's more fun if I try and summarise off the top of my head. So, in A tier, we've got Manchester City, Chelsea, Manchester United and Brighton. Is that too much in the top tier, or is that fair?
That's fair, I think. Brighton I'd have the top 3 definitely nailed on. Brighton are the outlier because no one expected them to be this good.
Okay, fair enough. Then in the B tier, I believe we put Crystal Palace and only Crystal Palace.
We did only put... Yes, I think so.
So C tier was Liverpool.
Yes.
And Aston Villa.
Yes, we put Aston Villa in there.
Then in D tier, it was... where did we put Leicester? Are they C?
Yeah.
I think they were C. D tier, we put in Tottenham and we put in West Ham. And in E tier, it was Arsenal, who have sacked manager Jonas Eidevall, and Everton, who have not scored a goal yet.
And have not sacked Brian Sorensen, who is counting his days.
I was going to say, who was down at the job centre last week.
I hope that's right.
So that was our rating of the season so far. Feel free to give your grades in the comments below. I'm sure we'll have some great comments. We always do. So do get involved down there with your thoughts. But yeah, that is, I think, our first video, if we give it 10 seconds, that ticks over the hour mark. So that is lovely stuff. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. It's now the international break, so there are no streams because we are going to the England-Germany game, and we can't stream the England-South Africa game.
Come find us.
But not in general, but if you are going to the England-Germany game and you see us, feel free to say hi. Other than that, we'll be back up with live streams in 2 weeks' time, and we'll be doing some content over the international break, so look out for all of that. But that is our summary of the first 5 match weeks of the WSL season. If you want some more content, there'll be another video on screen now, which was our match week 5 review, so you can go ahead and give that a click. But that is everything from us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.